not one site in the States that I know about, like big operation that runs an excavator versus a face shovel.
Nope. And I tell the Australians that. They're like, what do you mean? Like, how do you guys do it? I'm like, it's all face shovel. It's all, or loader, but most everything is rope shovel is the biggest stuff. But I've seen a few rope shovels out there, and they have some drag lines in the Bowen. But yeah, it's all just big excavator. It's crazy.
Well, you know what's funny is I think sounds like LeBear's might be trying to take that philosophy and bring it into Arizona.
Yeah. I know they want to get into the United States, but because ironically they manufacture all their trucks here.
Yeah.
In
Virginia.
Newport News. But I just think they're like the biggest thing in the way is the support. Like support. Yeah. If you can't support it, it's not worth a lot in the grand scheme of things. And
Agreed.
they just don't have that infrastructure.
Well,
here.
Support, supply chain.
Supply chain.
It's a dance. Right?
And that's what I mean. Yeah, it's like, all right, it's going to break at some point. There's just no way around that. And I love how all the manufacturers are like, oh yeah, ours is the best. I don't know. You walk around Mine Expo, you're like, these are all pretty damn good. Like they're all pretty comparable. And okay, yeah, you know, we're fighting for margins here or there, but they're all great. And so cool. If everything's great, when it breaks, how quickly can you get it to be not broken?
You got it. Well, I think that's why you see a lot of these mining companies that have traditionally been Epiroc drills, Hitachi shovels.
Yeah.
They stick with them because it's a proven product, number one.
Yep.
Two, they've already got the inventory to where introducing a new product into the mining industry is tough.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I worked for Komatsu for about 2.5, 3 years, developing their underground line of business and bringing in a Komatsu underground loader or haul truck with pulling teeth.
Yeah.
But they're on the road. They're going to be a main.
Well, they just bought or they acquired, what is it, GHH or? Yeah. It's GHH, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Big German manufacturer, which great play. And so I know they had a big market share on the underground space. Now that they have that,
yeah,
there you go.
Well, I mean, these bigger companies like Komatsu, Hitachi, they swallow up all these smaller companies.
Yeah.
But I mean, to get to the customer, even though it's GHH or whatever, sub company, they still expect to have the main brand take care of them.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So having that one face to the customer is pretty tough.
Yeah. I didn't know you were with Komatsu. When was that?
About 5 years ago.
Okay. How long have you been with Hitachi now?
I've been with them for a year.
Okay, for a year.
Yep.
Oh, wow. So it's quite new.
Yeah. So after when I left Komatsu, Komatsu was more of a United States business development role.
Sure.
I had my daughter was just getting ready to graduate high school.
Yeah.
So I needed to be home a little bit more. Sandvik had an opportunity. So I developed their surface drill business for them in the West.
I see.
Focusing on Nevada and Arizona.
Okay.
So spent a lot of time doing that. They've got a great product. But yeah, then I came over to Hitachi. I don't know if you ever met Daniel Hahn, but
I don't think so. No.
Anyhow, he's with Arnold Machinery, and that's who I currently work for. But really work with the full Hitachi organization.
Maybe I did meet him at Mine Expo. Was he at Mine Expo?
You met James Kim.
I met James. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Daniel's since left the company, but he'd been trying to get me on with Arnold/Hitachi for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, just because I think Arnold, there's cycles in the mining business, right? When they buy.
Sure.
To where they're not replacing shovels every 5 years, they're replacing shovels every 15. So now that, the mines are coming back into a buying cycle, didn't necessarily have somebody set up that knew the people, so he recruited me for a couple of years, and I finally bit the bullet and said, you know what, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, because Hitachi, they do have a truck offering. It's not that built out yet.
Yeah.
in the States, at least.
In the States, the market share is not there. But Australia, Peru, South America.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I have seen a lot down there. Yeah.
The thing here in the States is, tier 4 final.
That's right.
To where, it's more expensive. But like you said earlier, a lot of these pieces of equipment, they're all fairly the same, right?
They're all really good. And everybody shares engineers.
Totally.
Talking to the guys at Mine Expo, it's like, oh yeah, I used to work, a cat guy. Oh yeah, I used to work at Komatsu. The Komatsu guy. Oh yeah, I spent 17 years at Caterpillar. It's like, oh yeah, of course you did. Yeah.
They're relatively the same. You've seen the Hitachi truck. To me, that was impressive.
It looked beautiful.
I've ran the cat trucks. I mean, to give you a little snapshot, I mean, when I started back in the mining industry, I was a haul truck driver.
Did you?
And worked my way through the mining process as a lead man. I ran shovel, ran dozer, ran RTD, ran drills.
This was all in Nevada. Or did you move around?
Yeah, I was in Nevada.
Yeah.
I managed a drill and blast group, for 3.5 years for Kinross / Barrick at the time.
Sure.
And then I took an underground project for Barrick. And so I've got a lot of experience in the industry in Nevada. And the network of people there, but it
kind of seems like everybody.
I would say with Komatsu and Sandvik, you just start meeting people, right? People like good people,
sure.
And as long as you're personable and you're willing to help. I mean, from the sales perspective, I don't like sales. I like to be able to provide a solution, and if you want it, you know where I'm at.
Sure.
But so the network that we've got is, I don't know. Well, I think we do fairly well.
Yeah, like Mine Expo was like a month ago now.
Yeah.
It was my first Mine Expo where I actually knew people in the mining industry, and it was the first Mine Expo I'd been to where I knew people. And it was a global Mine Expo, because the last one, I didn't even think about this until halfway through. There were no foreigners.
Right.
It was just Americans. And it was amazing how many people I knew. But I didn't really go into it realizing that at the time. And then afterwards, you're like, wow, I have met a lot of people. Like, I do know a lot of people in this world now, which is just so cool.
Well, it's got to be pretty crazy to think, like, when you specifically are walking around, how many people notice you, how many people are going, I want to take a picture with that guy or talk to that guy.
Yeah.
I got a chance to kind of sit back and, watch when you're at Bridgestone, or you were just walking around and, needing a break, and you came over and sat, at the Hitachi area for a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool to see, because one, we need a positive influence in the industry. We need somebody to help keep cracking that door open to what we do,
Yeah, it's that stuff. I feel like Ricky Bobby, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I just, I still don't know. It's so against my nature. Like, I just don't know what to do with it. But it is really cool to, I don't know. I feel like you also have a podcast.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for quite a few years now, doing the social media stuff, the YouTube stuff. I don't really hear a lot about it, or maybe I just tune it out, or I don't know what it is. I don't get a lot of feedback. But then you go to a show like that where you're connecting with so many people and you're hearing the feedback in real time, like, oh, wait, wow, I'm actually making a difference.
Yeah, somebody's listening.
Yeah, this is quite cool.
Yeah.
And that's not like why I do it. Like, I don't need that validation. I don't need to be told I'm doing a great job. Like, I'm going to do it regardless.
Right.
But it's really cool to hear the impact it's created. Like, hey, I'm working here because I saw this video. It's like, oh, that's cool. Or I'm sure you've had this all the time with your podcast. Like, hey, yeah, I would have never even known about this opportunity had it not been for this interview hosting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, really, with our podcast, we focus on the people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We dive into the haul truck driver to the CEO.
Yeah.
And really what we'd like to try highlighting is, what does mining do for an individual wanting to come in the industry?
Mm-hmm.
And listening to the stories that we've had 100 and almost 170 shows now.
Damn.
To where you're inspired because of all of the opportunities that get presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you do the right thing, you're a good person. The mining industry, we did a podcast the other day really looking at the Nevada market, and the average salary in Nevada outside of the mining industry is like $63,000 a year.
Sure.
In the mining sector, it's $118,000
No kidding.
a year.
Wow.
But we don't market that well.
Well, Nevada is interesting because when you think Nevada, you think Las Vegas, you think casinos. Number one, casinos. Or you've got Reno on the other side. But then everywhere in the middle is either U.S. military, aliens, or mining. It's really, that's all that's going on in Nevada.
True story.
Like you've got the gambling on the edges. Everything in the middle is United States military or mining.
Yeah.
That's like the employer in the state.
Agreed. And really, man, I mean, there's so many little ghost towns, so much history with the mining in Nevada. And it's kind of shocking to me on how much we don't have the curriculum in the schools to teach our kids about what we do and the history and what we've done to show the progress of where we used to be to where we're at now. I think, that's one of the struggles that we got to get over is, the visibility into the industry.
Sure. And in Nevada, the main commodity is gold.
Correct.
One of the biggest gold producers in the world.
Gold. We got a copper mine. We got a lithium mine as well. Thacker Pass.
Well, you hope it becomes a lithium mine.
Yeah.
But
there's a push.
It's taken a while. Yeah, it's taken a while to get there. Yeah, with Thacker Pass, and there's another one out there too. I feel like there's another lithium project. Is Thacker Pass Lithium's America?
Yeah.
That one's supposed to be going at some point.
Yeah. Well, they've got their equipment out there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they went with the Komatsu fleet. So
did they?
Mm-hmm.
North American Mining has the contract out there to operate the mine, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's I think Bechtel's the construction manager. Is it Bechtel?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, government.
Yep.
My dad used to. So when we left Beatty, when the Bullfrog project closed, that's where my dad went to work. He went to work for Bechtel out on the test range, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And he was an underground safety professional out there as they're mining tunnels just to blow up.
For the military.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went down a rabbit hole after it was my first time into central Nevada when we went with you to Kinross. And I'd never been out there before. And that's pretty middle of nowhere out there. Like it's a different world. It's kind of like New Mexico in a way. You go out there.
The hills have eyes.
Yeah, this is different out here, man. Yeah, this is a different world. And then I went down the military rabbit hole because that's where a majority of the nuclear testing was.
Oh yeah,
for the United States.
Yep,
back in the day,
and that whole valley from as you leave Vegas all the way up through to Tonopah.
Yeah, all the way through Tonopah. And I got looking on like Google Earth, and all the craters are out there, and you're looking at what are all these craters? Like, oh, those were all of the nuclear tests. Like that's like the biggest super fun site in the world because it's just been blown up so many times, and all of it was underground. A lot of it was underground.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
Crazy. They detonate these things underground. It would make this crater up on the surface, and then let's go do the next one.
Well, when I was growing up in Beatty, we used to see the stealth bomber before it was even released.
Yeah,
it was like, what is that? Everybody thought it was a UFO, and 5 or 6 years later, it came out, and it was like, hey, we're unveiling this new product, and it was like, we've seen that, forever, for the last 5 years.
That's
so
crazy.
Yeah, and as kids, we used to go up to Tonopah quite a bit and play baseball and football, and we'd stay with different families, and you'd take a trip out and see how far you could get down the dirt road before somebody approached you.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure.
So that's a real thing.
Yeah. That's where, just the history out there is remarkable for mining and the U.S. military. So you've always been in Nevada then? Yeah,
straight Nevada guy. I grew up in Ely, until I was about 12, and then we moved to Beatty. My dad worked in the mining industry. He was a driller when he started, and then we headed to Beatty, and he got into the safety realm of things, mine rescue realm of things, and stayed there for till I graduated high school, and then I went to college in Vegas.
So you did go to college?
Yep.
What school did you go to in Vegas?
UNLV.
UNLV, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess that's
I was pretty bummed, man, because I wanted to play baseball. Like, baseball was my passion growing up, and my old man came to me one day when I was trying to figure out, what I wanted to do, because I had an opportunity to go to Ridgecrest, California to play baseball. And he went, let's be honest with each other. You're short.
Sure.
You're fast.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it to the big leagues. Why don't we go focus on school and get started?
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do it. Well, they had bought a house in Las Vegas, so I didn't have to stay at the dorms. Started school in Vegas and ended up getting into the boxing program. I ended up boxing for UNLV for 5 years.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And met my wife, and the rest is history.
So, but you go to school. Was mining always the thing to do, or did you think like, maybe I'm gonna go do something else?
So,
like Cirque du Soleil, that sounds pretty cool.
When I went to school in Vegas, the mine, it wasn't an option. When they gave you a scholarship, but you'd be able to go back every summer and every winter break.
Yeah.
And you had a position at the mine to be able to work. And it, back then in the mid 90s, they actually let you work. I mean, I built structures on top of mills with Vietnam vets, that were angry.
Sure. Yeah.
But I learned a lot.
Yeah, they teach you a lot.
To where nowadays you don't necessarily see that, But yeah, that was a thing. And as I, every year that went by, I always told myself, you know what, I want to do something different. I'm not going back into mining.
Yeah.
And so I actually, when I was going to school, I managed a fine dining restaurant inside the Venetian for about 3 years.
Really?
Yeah. And then I was just working long hours for little pay. When you're not serving people, you don't make money.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I've always been into the gym, and that's where I met Marty with Patriot or American Asphalt.
Okay.
And he told me, he's like, hey man, if you're ready to come over and come to work, I'll start you out here. Okay. So I started in the construction realm, and that was probably the best job that I've ever had. Just, you got to run equipment, just play in the sandbox all day.
Sure.
So I ran scrapers, paddle wheels, blades, dozers, you name it. And then, my mom and my dad, they were in, he was working for Kinross at the time. My dad was up in Fort Knox.
But in Alaska.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
But he was traveling all over the world. He was a corporate safety and health manager for him. And he was in Santiago, Chile, or at the La Coipa project, and had a massive heart attack and passed away.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that left my younger brother. You met Derek.
Yeah.
That left him and my mom in Reno. And they hadn't even settled into their new house yet.
Wow.
And I was living in Las Vegas, and I just said, I gotta move north to help them out. Right. So ended up moving to Reno, quit the best job that I ever had, and got into the vertical side of construction.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. it was a job, but what it taught me though is, because we were building 1,200 houses a year, right? I had contractors working for me that, super fast paced, great experience. But when the construction market fell out in 2008, 2009, I was flying back and forth. I called Marty and said, hey man, lost my job up here. He's like, come down. We've got a huge job. I did a 400 acre, it was called Shooters Park on the north end of town, big shooting range. And that project lasted about a year and a half. So I was traveling back and forth between Reno and Vegas, and then that just wasn't sustainable, right? I had one daughter at the time, and my second daughter was getting ready to be born. And funny story, my wife is from South Florida. So being in Vegas was awesome.
Yeah.
Moving to Reno was, okay, I can hang with this.
Sure.
when the construction market fell out and we had to make a decision on what we wanted to do, I said, hey, I'm gonna apply for a position in Elko. And I had an older brother that lived there. And she's like, okay, we'll just wait and see how this goes.
Yeah.
Well, I got the job, and we pack our stuff up, and we head to Elko, Nevada. And we get there, and there's no street lights, out where we were living.
Just straight
and
mining
she's
town.
like, where are we at? Like, what are we doing?
A little bit different than Miami, huh?
Oh, totally. Totally. But, it was bad enough to where, I'm thinking to myself, first day on the job, I get out there, and I've been around the mines, but in Beatty, they didn't run big haul trucks like they were out at Bald Mountain.
Yeah.
To where it was just a whole new world. Long story short, you get trained, you're running by yourself, first load, you're backing up to a dump that you've got a dozer hand that's yelling at you because he thinks you're going to dump the load on top.
Yeah,
you're nervous as all get out.
Yeah.
And it's like the thought process in your mind is like, what am I doing here?
The training program wasn't as dynamic. It's more so figure it out.
Totally. I mean, they put me through, I want to say about eight days worth of training with somebody.
Okay.
But
that's pretty good.
But when you get to run a piece of equipment like that by yourself for the first time, obviously you're going to be questioning. I mean, I've ran blades and dozers and scrapers, but when you're running something of that magnitude, it's like, wow.
Yeah, hauling 200 plus tons. And they say these trucks are as big as a house. They're much bigger than a house. Much bigger than a house.
Yeah.
And then you can't see out of the damn things. Like, the visibility is horrendous.
Terrible. And then I want you to back up on night shift.
Yeah, so it's not like you just look through the back window like, oh yeah, this is no problem. I mean, it is, on night shift. Yeah. So it is so bad.
Well, and think about this. The braking systems aren't mechanical.
Nope.
Where you've got to learn, essentially you got to learn how to drive again.
Yeah.
To where it was a crazy cool experience. I obviously I never left. Spent 7 years on the surface, spent 2 years in the underground, to where it's been super fruitful, to where my wife likes it now.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good thing.
It's not the destination of choice, but she understands that, there's brighter days ahead, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But,
I would have guessed that you just jumped into mining at like 18, got right out of high school, went into mining. So it's interesting that you actually got all over the place.
Yeah.
It's also interesting mining. It's typically on a different cycle, in a lot of ways than the overall economy, or like home building, for example. So 2008, 2009, the economy collapses in a way and home building disappears.
Gone.
But gold mining, well, hey, we still need gold, and people are actually buying more gold because they're afraid that their money's going to go, going to become worth nothing.
Well, you would think that there'd be so much marketing to the mining industry at that point, right? But there wasn't. The only way I found out that people were hiring in Elko was I had a cousin that was working underground in Winnemucca, and I thought, well, if he can go to work at the mines, why? There is no reason that I can't.
Sure.
Anyway, long story short, I think that's to get back into the industry that way was, I don't know. I guess I look at it as it was destiny for me. I mean, I always told myself I didn't want to go back into it. I knew what it did for me as a kid and all the opportunities it provided my parents. And now, I'm seeing those.
Why didn't you want to get into it though?
Really, I just thought there was something. I don't know if better is the right word. More, I think when you're young, you want to look at like what seems glamorous, right? I mean, that's that's one of the reasons that I got into the restaurant business. One, I had a good schedule while I was going to school, but two, you're you're hanging out with people that pay $350 a plate,
Sure.
to where, and then you realize that doesn't work out. Getting into the construction industry, if my dad was still here, I would still be working for Marty. I mean, that's how amazing it was to work for that company.
Yeah.
But life takes its toll or changes, and the stability is what brought me back. I thought, you know what, I've got kids, and I can't afford not to provide.
Mm-hmm.
And so, getting back to Elko, it was, let's get our work boots on. Let's do it. I mean, I'd never worked night shift before. That was, they're rough when you first start, but it's just part of it. And
would you swing back and forth? Or was it just nights?
No. So the rotation I worked was 4 on, 5 off, 5 on, 4 off.
Okay.
And you'd alternate between days and nights.
Yeah.
To where the night shifts were, I'm not a night shift guy.
Mm-hmm.
I get up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, hit the gym, go to work, and night shifts just weren't good, But I also had to figure out, what does health and fitness look like inside the mining industry? Because at the end of the day, the mines need people to be, number one, be healthy.
Yeah.
2, they need to be able to function at a high level with safety.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take for granted what you're doing every day, right? I mean, after you start running a haul truck for a while, it's like you're driving a car all day long.
Well, and see, this is something I've thought a lot about, and construction's the same. It's the same thing. I think because everybody needs people so bad, everybody's so focused on how great construction is, how great mining is. There's a lot of great things about it. There's also a lot of terrible things about it. You go onto a mine site, you go onto a construction site, you look around. Can you honestly tell me that everybody looks healthy?
No.
Absolutely not. Which makes me scratch my head, because those industries both are built upon people's bodies and people's minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just I know it's way more complex than that, but I do scratch my head, like, why isn't there more? There's so much money spent on safety, but how, like, I just talked about this, I feel like, with somebody else. Isn't somebody, all right, if one of our biggest hazards on a mine site is getting on and off equipment, right? That's one of the biggest hazards on a mine site. Is somebody who is physically fit more or less likely to be injured getting on and off a piece of equipment? I would say probably less likely.
I agree.
And so it's not, and everybody knows this. And again, it's way more complex. I understand. But I do also, it sometimes upsets me. It's like, why isn't this more of a conversation? Being healthy, for example.
Well, one of my first experiences when I started working in the mines, stopped by the store one morning to grab a cup of coffee, and there were 15 people in 3 different lines with their lunch for the day.
Yeah.
And it was like, these guys are spending $45 a day at the local convenience store. They've got monsters, burritos, honey buns, you name it.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, over the years, as I worked out there, it was like, when you're sitting in a haul truck, you're not doing much all day. And then, you start adding the pounds, right? It's almost like going to college, put on the freshman 50, and it just doesn't go away. So for me, I recognize that, and I'm like, I got to figure something out. Like I can't be 5'4".
Yeah.
250 pounds, right?
Yeah.
To where
rolling to work.
To where I know some of the companies incentivize the health side of things, but changing that direction for the miners is tough because they do work long hours.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get to spend a whole lot of time with their families,
mm-hmm.
Especially with the alternating shifts, to where it's like, how do you change that?
Well, and I'm not here to blame the people on those schedules either, because when you're working 12 hours and you're having to drive a ways to home or whatever it is, wherever you live, or you're going back and forth nights, day, like, it doesn't leave a lot of time to go to the gym, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym this morning before my 12-hour shift. And I have an hour drive. Like, it doesn't work that way. And because I've done it, it's brutal. It's hard to sustain working those hours and working out.
Imagine doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing, I guess, now that we're talking about it, one thing I want to look at when I leave here is the miner's lunchbox from the 50s to the miner's lunchbox now, because I know when I left the mines themselves, working for the mining companies, there were guys with, coolers that they would put in their haul truck seat, and it was packed.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. And back in the day, we've got a lot of memorabilia at our podcast studio, to where the miner's lunchbox was, 1 foot tall and about that big around, and it had 3 sections for leftovers from last night. And that's all you had.
Mm-hmm.
And you're physically working all day, to where that's another, interesting topic for me anyway.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Like I was telling you this morning, people always ask, like, I got back from Australia last night and they're like, how are you doing? How do you feel? It's like, I feel fine right now, but I would feel like dog shit if I was, 70 pounds overweight. And if I just ate like a bag of Skittles on the plane yesterday, like the big bag, and if I just ate bullshit the whole time and wasn't like, I have to be healthy to do that. And if I'm not healthy, I'm not coming back from that for a few days at least, if ever, or drinking on the plane or anything like that. I don't know how people drink on planes, because I'm already like, flying's already setting me back. Having a rum and Coke at 8 a.m. on the plane, like, I can't do that. I don't. No. Good for you if you can, but I just can't do that.
I'm with you. Well, that's another thing on the backside of the health. Miners work hard, they play hard.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're not even talking about the playing yet, but you get into the drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah.
No, and especially in a town like that, because I know. I haven't been around the Nevada towns, but I've been around the Arizona towns enough to know that, like, the drug problems in some of these mining towns, it is, everybody knows about it because it's that bad.
Yeah.
And I wish we would have honest conversations about this stuff. That's what I like about the fly in, fly out nature of Western Australia. I think it's a lot more sustainable in a lot of ways, because you're doing a week on, a week off, which is, I think, awesome. That's a great schedule. And then with time off, you're working half the year. And 4 days off is great, but you've got, especially if you're transitioning from nights to days, and if you're working that hard in these environments, it takes you at least a day, like, at best, to transition, if not 2. And then you're winding back up to go to work for a day or 2. So it's not really enough time off in many ways. Whereas like a week or 2 weeks, that's enough time to come off, be with your family, chill out, then come back on, I think. And so I think the 1 week on, 1 week off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off is more sustainable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think these camps are also great because they give you all the food. So the mining company's paying for all the food, and it's, sure, you can't eat just nonstop ice cream, but I had, like at the camp we stayed with Rio Tinto, steak on demand. I would love a steak. They cook you a steak right there. Unbelievable. I could eat so clean, so well at this place. And just so, 1, food's phenomenal. And then 2, the athletic facilities are phenomenal.
Yeah.
They've got athletic fields, and then the gyms are pretty legit. Like I've worked out in 3 mine gyms, all super legit. Everything you could ask for. We stay at this one mine camp in Queensland. They have a lap pool. It's like, this place has everything. Tennis courts, lap pool, soccer field.
Yep. You
can go deadlift, squat, whatever you want, all at the mine. And so, and a lot of people were actually in there in the morning too, which I thought was really cool.
How far out was the mine from the nearest town?
This one camp I was at is only, I don't know, an hour from Mackay, which is a big town. But most of these guys, it's all fly in, fly out. Yeah. So they live typically in other towns that
Gotcha.
are hours and hours away.
Well, the reason I'm asking is Barrick back in the day out at Cortez, they've got a huge complex out there as well that's not even being used, and it's exactly what you're. When they were drilling the 4 Mile project for the underground at Gold Rush.
Yeah.
I think it houses about 500 people, but it's got a golf simulator, it's got a weight room. I mean, everything that you're saying we have, it's just not being used.
Sure.
But Elko isn't necessarily a camp job at this point.
Yeah.
But I see it moving that way. Yeah. I mean, we've got in the Nevada region right now, up north, we've got four major underground contract miners, working in the area, and they do the fly in, fly out. I've heard that one of the companies up in Nevada, they bought one of the hotels specifically for that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they're going to kick that man camp back off.
The whole camp thing is really compelling. Me as a young individual, I would much rather live in like Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh yeah.
For a week, and then commute, and then fly out to Miami, or fly out in Miami, Arizona, not Miami, Florida, or fly to Ely, or something like that. I growing up in a city, I don't think I'd want to live in a town like that. Nothing against it, but it's just not appealing to me. But I don't know, from like a hiring standpoint, there's a lot more people to hire in a big city than there are in a small mining town.
Yeah.
Most everybody in small mining towns probably already employed by the mine anyway. And I after going to Australia enough and seeing the model work really well and actually be quite sustainable for a long time. And everybody, I mean, there's people that talk shit about it, of course, but there's a lot of people that are super positive about it too.
How do you talk shit about working 6 months out of the year and making
it's 5 months? It's technically 5 months. And I don't know. There's some people that are just bitter about whatever they do, but most everybody's super complimentary about it, and it's also more sustainable from a family standpoint.
Oh, totally. I've had one of my cousins is a traveling underground miner, right? What they call him, a tramp miner, and he used to work in Alaska up at the Northern Star project at Pogo, and the controlled environment is for the miners. Is they're getting rest.
Yep.
They're eating healthy.
Yep.
They're focused on work, and then when they go home, they get to go hang with their family.
Well, and you can be at home because actually, especially working a 12-hour shift especially something like underground, you're not worth anything to anybody after that shift. You're just not. You're not.
Well, imagine having to drive an hour and a half home.
Yes.
I mean, these guys were 16, 17-hour days. When I was working in the mines, I had an hour and a half bus ride. You get to the bus or to the van, depending on if you're riding with supervisors or not. And then you've got to be out there at 5 o'clock in the morning, or 4:30 in the afternoon for shift change or crossover. So that extra 4 or 5 hours on top of a 12-hour shift, you're getting home, you shower. Sometimes you don't even eat, and you go to bed. To where I do agree with the camp jobs.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I've never lived in either world. I'm just some asshole, like I always say, from the bleachers commenting on this. But based on everything I've seen, everything I've heard, the camp setup, that's what I would sign up for. I've been to a lot of mines in the States. I think it's all very cool. I've never actually once thought I could do this. I would sign up for this. Like, I've been to all the mines in Arizona, grew up in Arizona. I don't know. I think I'd work in a lot of other places before I'd go to work in the mines. Speaking very frankly, there's some great earth moving companies in Phoenix. I'd probably go to work there first because I'd be in Phoenix. I'd be home every night. I wouldn't be in Miami. I wouldn't be in Globe. I wouldn't be in Brunson or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Again, nothing against that. It's just not how I grew up. It's not what I would want to do personally. But when I go to Australia, that fly in, fly out model, I could live in Brisbane and work in the mines. Sign me up. That was the first time where I went out to Bravis to see this coal mine out in the middle of nowhere in Queensland, Australia. Fly in, fly out every week. Camps unbelievable. We're having lobster and steak one night. It was like lobster and steak night, coincidentally, when we were there, and it's delicious food. The whole thing. The gym's great. Everything about it. The rooms are pretty damn phenomenal too.
Like hotel rooms.
Yeah, you've got everything you want, nothing more. It was the first time I was like, I would in a different life, I would do this. No questions asked. And then for the money that they're making too, sign me up. 100%. 1 week on, 1 week off.
You know, it'd be an interesting project, man, would be documenting the day in the life of a miner.
Yeah.
You know, me and my brother, my business partner, we've thought about, what does that look like? Is that a good marketing tool? I don't know, but you know what I mean?
But we have to admit that, like,
yeah.
Is that a good marketing tool? Because it should be.
Yeah.
But if it's not,
yeah, it's
why isn't it?
Here's the transparency.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like, 3:30 in the morning. And, I think you could get some people to follow around, as you're picking them up from their house and just following them throughout
really
their days.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
To where but I think if you're open and transparent with that stuff, combined with what you're talking about, hey, it could be a camp job to where you get to do this just for a week and then you're home for a week.
Yep.
It might, and guess you're not paying for any meals.
Yep.
You're eating well. You're hitting the gym. You're getting plenty of sleep.
I don't have to commute back and forth every day.
Yeah. I mean, that's where, alcohol in the industry is a big deal because guys get off of work and as soon as they hit their truck, they're, pounding 3 or 4 tall boys, on the way home just so they can sleep. And it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's another thing in Australia. You can't get onto a mine site without getting breathalyzed.
Really?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Interesting.
Crazy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the camps are different, but every time we were a visitor coming off site onto a mine, you have to grab a little straw and blow into a breathalyzer.
Yeah, dang, that's crazy. It'd be interesting to see what they would do with that out here.
How many people would not be able to come to work if they were doing that? I mean, and it's like something I think people would laugh about, but yeah, they're super serious about it out there.
So we podcasted a company called Gaze, Gaze, and what they're doing is they've got VR technology to look for impairedness. But it looks for everything.
Oh, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, but it also doubles down as for the mine rescue groups to where if they have an accident on site, they can utilize, the VR headset to look for any kind of head injuries.
Sure. They, something that's becoming pretty common, I've seen, not in the States, but other places, is the cameras that watch the drivers as well.
Yep.
So they're in your haul truck, camera staring right at you, which... you have to message right. You can't just put those in there and expect everybody to be happy about it because I don't know if I would be happy about it if it's not messaged right, but it watches you for distractions on your phone, obviously, if you're impaired, whatever it is, or falling asleep is the big one, especially night shift.
Yeah. I mean, night shifts my first night shift, I can remember I was on a 777 Cat in a smaller pit on, the lower end of the mine. And I hadn't taken a break all night. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, man, I got to go to the ready line. Went to the ready line, and it was about 4:00, and my buzzer on my fleet management system, it was called Jigsaw. Yeah. He's just buzzing at me. The dispatcher's trying to, hey, where you at? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit.
Well, and that's another thing is, especially being new, like. They tell you can do that, but you don't want to be the guy pulling your truck over when everybody else is busting their asses, especially as the new guy. You don't want to be that guy.
Well, you got to look at it. There's competition in the mines, right? Between
that too.
All 4 crews. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, these guys just hauled 150,000 tons of their shift. We've got to get 155, to where you got your shovel hands. One of the cool stories I always remember, his name was Tommy Baker. He was an electric shovel hand out there. He, at the end of shift, he'd just go, hey, am I going to have any other trucks showing up here in the pit? And it was like, that was his cue to say, hey, we need to get a couple more tons. Uh-huh. and he'd sit on the radio, here, truck, here, truck. So you get into the competition, right? To where, hey, my crew's the best. And it does really become a lifestyle of, you've got your family at work and then you've got your family at home.
Sure.
The camaraderie is another thing inside the industry I think is just amazing.
It can be amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Or it can be completely miserable.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it both ways. Like but when it is amazing, it's awesome. You're at a great operation.
Yeah.
You can just kind of feel it in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas I've been at other operations where it's like, I don't know, like everybody just hates each other.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's the culture too, though, right? I mean, I got an opportunity to work at what I'm going to classify probably the best, cleanest, best standards, and the happiest people at Cortez Hills Underground. A guy by the name of Vern Goglio and Don Schumacher, they actually had an opportunity to start the mine. And
that's very cool.
They got a chance to set standards. They got a chance to pick the people that they wanted on their team, and they let them be creative. Yeah. They took time for maintenance, and everybody just went and did their job.
Yeah, go figure.
To where, I mean, you could walk around the underground. You wouldn't find a cigarette butt. You wouldn't find an earplug. Everybody picked up their own trash, and if somebody left trash, you were let known about it. To where the culture was amazing, to where, so yeah, you're right. I mean, it could go either way, but if you have an opportunity to, set those expectations with your employees as they come on, it's like, hey, this is how we operate out here. It's not going to be Western, construction style stuff. It's going to be, because I will say, I mean, from the safety side of things, I think, obviously the industry is just focused way more around safety,
Yeah.
So
it is, but it was interesting. I was on a call with some guy out in South Africa the other day. I was telling him, hey, I've been wanting to come out and see mining in Africa for quite a while now, but I've just been waiting for the right opportunity, right time. And I said, I know it's complex out there for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to put it on the back burner for a little bit, figure out some other regions, and then time's right, go out there. Working on a trip out there next year. And he said, hey, totally understand that. Yeah, there's a lot of Africa that's pretty wild, but South Africa, it's best in class compared.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, we went over to the United States thinking it was going to be incredible, so far beyond what we do, and we were in a way disappointed because it's just not at all to our standard. And that's what I experienced when I went down to South America. When you go to Chile for the first time, I was expecting it's like, all right, yeah, this isn't going to be as good. And you go down there and it's like way better.
Wow.
and you're just like, oh yeah, I fell into I'm an American trap and we're the best. And I just assumed that we were the best. And I go to these other countries and they're like, oh, they're actually way better and way safer. And their cultures are way beyond where we are.
And you think with MSHA and standards in the industry and how people move around that it would be somewhat the same. But
no,
we did a big golf event for about 45 mine engineers. It was called the Glizzy Golf Tournament, where we got a chance to sit down with a lot of these guys, and there was a ton of engineers that came in from Canada, and they said it is amazing to work here in Nevada specific. Like the mining's the culture's different, it's better, and it's like, and then you've got your Nevada miners going, I want to move out of here. This isn't what it needs to be, and it's like, man, I think the grass is as green as you're going to make it.
Sure.
You got to water it. To where, from a standards perspective, I haven't had the opportunity to travel, as much as you have to see different applications. But I think that's something in the future, for us that we're looking forward to.
I think it's good for everybody
to
get out and look at other stuff.
Yeah.
Like how do you guys do? Because the MSHA, okay, MSHA's great. Yeah, we're killing a lot less people than we used to back in the day. But the rule book's also based on it's like the 1970s, I think it is, or it hasn't been changed since like the 70s.
Well, that's
because it can't
Well, that's
changed.
the problem with all the technology coming in. Unless you have that government agency working with these OEMs to help develop to where they can put standards around the technology coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, we had for an example, we had an underground project with battery electric vehicles. Long story short, one of the batteries caught fire, and it shut down that section of the mine for a couple months because MSHA just didn't have standards around it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they could move it. They didn't know how it off-gassed, to where it's like, wow, all that production at the mine because we didn't know what to do, and it was like, so I think getting in front of or working with the OEMs on all the technology that they got coming down. I mean, there's a lot of room for growth there.
A ton of room for opportunity, but it leaves, I think that's why there's such a discrepancy between safety and culture with a lot of mine sites, because you can have a site that's like the Wild Wild West, I've been to them, that technically abides by OSHA standards or pays their fines every year. We got to fine. But it's just kind of just cost of doing business. Yep. Yeah, it's just what we do. And then you go to another one that's run by like a Rio Tinto, that's run like a Swiss watch. Oh wait, this is like, you go to Kennecott and you're like, yeah, this is like a science project. I mean, you guys have it dialed in, but it's because they're not basing it on U.S. standards. They're basing it on global standards because they're a global operator. They're bringing their global standards into that application, which does piss some people off because it's like, oh, we used to get away with it. We used to be able to drink. Now I can't drink on the job.
We used to have 2 beers at lunch.
Yeah. So you have that, but most of the time I see it as a good thing that when they're bringing in other ideas from other places.
I agree, but I think what I've seen in the industry, just Nevada, Arizona, I would say western half of the United States, is sometimes you get into we're going to one up, the standard, and then it's like, whether it's striping your truck on site, it's like, man, sooner or later we've got to just set the standard and let it go.
Well, and then the new safety guy comes in, the old safety guy leaves, new safety guy comes in. Well, I've got to. Everybody's going to wear gloves all the time, no matter what.
You got it.
Doing your paperwork, gloves. Like, where's your gloves? And it's just, sometimes the rules get out of hand.
We're in our own way.
I've
let's
seen
get back
that
to the basics. I mean, like you said, probably one of the biggest hazards at the mine site is just getting on and off equipment.
Yep.
Being
tired.
Paying attention. Once you get into the seat and you're working every day, your people are the ones that are telling you about the hazards inside the mine, whether you're underground or on the surface. I mean, because they can see and smell and hear, all the different things.
Well, they're the ones there every day. Yeah.
I mean, they've got all kinds of technology on, high wall monitors, GPS or lasers, and it's amazing to me that the people are going to see it before the machines see it. The guys just need to know that they can raise their hand too,
Well, and that's I'm reading a book right now. I think it's called It's Your Ship. It's from this Navy captain who took over this destroyer with a miserable culture. Miserable. And he talks about all the things he learned along the way, making it one of the best in class ships in the entire U.S. Navy, which it's remarkable. And I think I talked to an executive about this. He said, it's a lot easier to enforce safety based on rules and compliance. But that's what companies do when they don't have culture. But if you're building a culture that allows for that safety and fosters that safety, it's actually far more productive for everybody involved and far safer. But it's a lot harder. It's way harder. And it's not harder, but it is harder because you have to sometimes tell the lawyers, actually, we're not going to do it that way. I know, Mr. Lawyer, that yes, that's the way you want it to be done, and that's the way to mitigate all risk forever. But that one's not a thing, and two, it's actually riskier because it just tells our people, we don't trust you at all, and so we're going to treat you like a fucking kindergartner. And if you don't follow the rules, you can go find another job. And it's like you start treating people like kindergartners. They act like kindergartners.
Yeah, totally. Well, and then that said kindergartner leaves your site and goes to the next site that might be a little bit more open and creative.
Yeah.
to where he's going to be a bottom performer because he's been taught not to use his mind.
Yeah. We don't want your ideas.
Yep.
We don't want you to be creative. We just want you to follow the damn rules. And like, I understand the need for rules, and that was his whole point of it's still the United States Navy. We still have these rules here. But I learned how to operate within those rules and give people the guardrails. But hey, within the guardrails, you can do whatever as long as it doesn't potentially harm somebody, cost the taxpayer additional money. He has these standards, which I think would apply on a mine site too. But within those, if it doesn't hurt somebody, like, yeah, let's hear the idea. Let's think about it. Yeah, if there's a better way to do it, let's have that conversation. Let's do that. But if you have all these people just showing up for paycheck, they're not going to raise their hand and say, hey, I think this is a better way to do it. Or worse, you get the new guy that comes in. He wants to, hey, I think there's a better way to do it. And then you've got all the other people like, shut the fuck up, Jimmy. Like, what? What do you think this is? Like, just drive your damn truck.
Yeah,
okay?
We've done it like this forever.
Yeah, we've done it like this forever. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But I don't think that's a good thing for attraction into the industry either. I mean, what I see nowadays with the younger kids, number one, they want to be heard. I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
But
who doesn't?
I think your older generations actually just knuckled down and went to work because that's what they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now that there are options out there, it's like, man, people want to be creative. They want to be heard. And if you do something because you've always done it, are you really looking at getting better?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean because you're trying it different that you're going to have a safety problem.
Yep.
It's like, one thing that we talk about a lot is like a postmortem on anything, right? It's like, let's look at this process. Let's look at this standard.
Mm-hmm.
How is it working? Let's get the real feedback from the miners. That's where the Cortez Hills Underground project was super successful because they actually interacted with their employees, and their employees built a program, and the management was just involved with them, to where they owned it,
Sure. Yeah. Well, that, again, going back to this book, it's your ship. Like, that was his whole point, is this is all of our ship, and we need to take care of it. And there's a bunch of stuff in that book that's like, fuck, I'm not doing this as a leader. I need to do a better job. Going back to the health thing, when you were in mining, how did you stay healthy on a ridiculous schedule?
Oh man, so on a ridiculous schedule, first thing for me is I recognized that, hey, I'm not myself, right? I was feeling sloppy, feeling tired. I went and got blood work done to find out, where I was at, hormone levels, cholesterol levels, and I found out that, hey man, you're not balanced out.
So did you were working in the industry and you let things slide? Did you?
Yeah. So I came in.
So you were healthy.
Yep.
Coming in the industry and things start to.
Yeah. So I came in about 185 pounds.
Yeah.
And sitting in a haul truck, I got up to like 211 pounds.
Okay.
And I just noticed, like, man, I'm just uncomfortable. Long story short, went to the doctor, checked it out. I ended up doing the keto diet for about 2.5 years straight. Felt great.
Really?
Yeah. And I ran 7 miles a day, even on work days. It was like, this is just what I have to do. For me, it's was more of a mentality of, man, you got to be around for your kids, and if you're going to go down this path, you're going to be around until you're about 45. And 45 was always a big number for me because my dad passed away at 45 with the massive heart attack, right? So it was like, I just recognized that I needed a change. And the mining companies, they have programs in place, you know?
Yeah, they do.
And it's a decision for the employees to take it or leave it, and it's like, if there's so many benefits to the industry, not just from a health standpoint, but from the financial standpoint. Like, you could go in as a 18-year-old kid, and I'll have to forward you over all the documents that we've got for it. But you go in as an 18-year-old kid, you can retire at 55 with $4.5 million in your bank account.
Sure.
And be healthy while you're doing it. I mean, there's programs that are out there with these companies that can do that. You just got to put in the work, you know, to where that's, I don't know, I guess that's where for me, that's what I found out. It was like, number one, you just got to make it. Yeah. You got to be aware of yourself, and then you got to make a decision. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is a lot of stuff out there. And I think that's what's so exciting about mining too, for people in the next generation, is like, if you're somebody that's willing to get after it, this world is endless opportunity right now, because these companies, they don't really know how to bring this next generation in. You can be part of that next generation that's just like, I'm just gonna get after it.
Yeah.
You will be able to, if you play your cards right, move through these organizations however you want to move through these organizations way faster than ever before. Yeah. And that's not to say you don't have to put in the work. You absolutely have to put in the work, but from like a earning potential standpoint, like if I put in like a good solid decade, or I was just committed in my 20s to the mining industry in Nevada or whatever it is, I'd be in a pretty solid place early 30s.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at short-term incentives, long-term incentives. Yeah. I mean, guys, operators are making, underground operators or miners they're making almost $200,000 a year. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And your living expenses are not that significant.
No.
In some of these places.
No. Well, yeah. They end up being that way because everybody, they, like I said earlier, the miners they play hard or they work hard and play harder. Sure. I mean, they've got the $100,000 trucks and the $150,000 trailers. Yeah. So it's like the mines benefit off that because they know that James has got to work some overtime.
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a cycle for sure, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you are intelligent about it, yeah, you could end up in a pretty remarkable place.
Yeah, but the education behind it, and I've talked to some HR professionals in the industry, if you put that in front of your employees as they walk in the door, yep, that this can be your path financially and health-wise from day one. This is what it looks like. If you're here for 15 years, this is what it looks like, blah, and so on. If you can do that and educate them as they come in, they're going to be a little bit more focused. Yeah. When I started, they didn't have that. They were building programs to assist in some of this stuff, but it was on the employee, right? With your health savings plans and things like that. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily incentivized. And I think now that, let's be honest with each other. When, as a mining company, you're buying seatbelt extenders, you got a problem.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Because sooner or later, somebody at the site is going to have a heart attack. Can you imagine somebody having a heart attack when they're driving a 240-ton or 320-ton haul truck?
Yeah.
Pretty scary.
Yeah. It's the painting that picture too, I think, is so important, especially like I see a lot of companies talking about their benefits as extraordinary, which could be true. Yeah, those are extraordinary benefits. But if everybody also has those benefits, they're not extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a standard.
It's a standard. Yeah. And so again, to me as a young person, it's like, cool, you have a great retirement plan. All right, I can find that in a lot of places now. Great health insurance plan. I can find that in a lot of places now. And it's like, not to be entitled, but I don't know. It's not that hard. So it's like, what else are you doing for me? Why should I come to work for you? Why should I live in Ely and work for you when I have all these other options out there? Which is I think a legitimate question, and that would be the question that would be running through my head.
But I think part of that though also comes back to being able to communicate with said individual about, well, where do you want to go as an individual?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at, hey, I need to fill this role, it's like, what can this individual bring to the table? I mean, we've got some ideas out there to, work with high school kids coming out of high school, and maybe doing a personality profile test on like a DISC assessment, sure, and maybe help set them up for a position because of their personality, what they might be good at. Yeah. To where that changes over time, but so does your career,
Well, and that changes over time too. That's such an important thing, because I that's the struggle too. Like you said, you were probably willing to just work whatever hours until you had children.
Yep.
Then you had children. Your life changed. You had to change your career to accommodate for that. But why is that always the case? Like, I think there's companies built on these crazy schedules. It's like, that's awesome. That's going to work for me when I'm 26 years old. Sure. But then I'm 34. I have 2 young kids at home. So I'm going to have to, it's either keep that schedule or find another job. Like, why is that? That's the only option here?
Yeah.
Why can't I keep work? What if I like this company? I just can't work that schedule because I have these kids.
Well,
can you do something else?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at that at multiple different angles. I mean, 1, daycare, right? 2, missing games and missing time. You know, when you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning and heading out, if you're a single parent, do we have facilities that take care of 6-month, 8-month-old babies? You know, all the way through till they get to school.
Sure.
I mean, I know some of these areas, you know, in Arizona and Nevada, they're building those programs because they're understanding that it's important, but it's still, at the end of the day, mom and dad are still gone 13 hours, 14 hours, to where when you get home, it's tough.
Well, and that's the I've been talking about this a lot, but it's like, that's the whole, you know, women in mining thing. Awesome. Great. Yeah, women can do everything in mining. But if they have 3 kids to take care of, how do they do that? How do they do that? Like, just explain to me how they do that. What are you doing to accommodate for that? It's quite interesting. Another thing in Australia I've seen the mining companies promoting, go figure, is a part-time schedule.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's all for anybody. If you want to work part-time at the mine, come on out. Just work, you know, a few days every once in a while, which I think is also like, that's a big deal. That's something. Hey, what can we do to accommodate for people that can't work 1 week on, 1 week off? It's either take it or leave it. Well, is it take it or leave it? Could we do something else?
I would think that the mines themselves, if it was up to them, they'd be open and creative, and you know, they'd be open to things like that. I think where it gets convoluted is taking it up into the executive group, and then it's about the shareholders, and it's like, on some level, you know, we're putting all these big mining companies together to look for synergies, but it's not about the people. You know, it's not assets. It's about how much can we produce. But it's got to get back to the people. You know, I mean, talking earlier, that was a standard back in the day. The owner of Barrick would come into Beatty and actually shake hands. You know, and the town was only 4,000 people at the max. But he would come in and spend the full family day there, and everybody knew him. He was just a regular guy. You know, and nowadays, does that happen? I would say we're going back towards that because we're having to try doing different things.
Sure.
They're finally, you know, in Nevada, they're doing mine tours, family days.
Yeah, I've seen that a bunch out there, which is great.
Yeah. One of the cool parts is I feel that we, as Mining Minds, have had some influence on that. When we sat down with Greg Walker, you know, we kind of picked his brain, and he picked our brains on what could help. You know, and it's like, well, when we were kids, this is what we used to do. I mean, if you lived in the mining town, you knew all about it.
Yeah.
You know, you knew what Dad did. You knew what Uncle Bob did. And, you know, and nowadays I did an event with the women in mining, and the kids, they understand that their parents work at the mines, but they don't know what they do.
Yep.
They don't know if they work at Kinross. They don't know. So to me, that shows that the parents aren't really necessarily proud of where they're at. They're doing it because they have to, right? To where I think that's probably the first step in the process of attracting the younger talent is mom and dad got to be happy at the house first.
That's something Randy with our company, he's talked a lot about that because he was a contractor. And it's like, why? Everybody always goes external first. We've got to go talk to schools. Great. I am all for talking to schools, and I'm not saying it's one or the other, but first and foremost, we should ask, does everybody here, if we asked, raise your hand, would you want your kids to work here?
Great question.
What does that look like? Does everybody raise their hand? Probably not. Why is that? Why?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want your kids to work here? Like, that would be number one, as far as I'm concerned, because your existing workforce is your best recruiting arm.
Absolutely.
Best possible recruiting strategy. The kid stuff will take care. That's my argument. That'll take care of itself.
Yep.
You take care of that existing workforce, future workforce. It'll solve it, and it won't just solve its own problem, but it will, in a sense. If all these parents, if these kids are seeing their parents like proud to do what they do, or not dreading the next shift or whatever it is, like, kids are perceptive. They understand if their parent likes what they do or not. They get that. They get it.
100% they do.
Yeah. And so that, like, to me, that's the best thing that a community like that could do, is let's make sure the parents are good to go, because the parents are the ones raising the kids.
Yeah. In the town that is looking for more miners.
Yeah.
But I will say, man, from a curriculum standpoint, I think across the board in the U.S., on some level, for us to be sustainable as a nation, to produce our own minerals and be, self-sufficient, we've got to understand where we were from a historical standpoint. We got to be able to show what we're doing way better than what we used to.
Yeah.
And having that in your school systems, I think, is important. Like, I've got 2 daughters, and my oldest is going to school at UNLV now, but I've sat down with them on a show, and they flat out said, when I was in school 4 years ago, I would have told you there's no way that I would go into the mining industry. And I'm like, why is that? She's like, we just don't know anything about it. We know what you've done, Dad. I mean, we've seen all your blasting videos and how excited you are about it. But we've never learned anything else. Like, we've never talked to anybody from the mines.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, we do programs around other things, and this is essential to everyday living, mining, right? I mean, we need it.
Yeah.
And with the demand for minerals, I mean, where are we going to get our workforce? We had a show the other day that we talked about. There's a potential for 50% of the industry to be falling out or retiring in the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, which should scare the shit out of anybody.
Yeah.
Like, not just in the mining industry, anybody.
But it was funny looking at the stats, and I'll have to share it with you. Looking at the stats, historically, back in the day, I know I say historically, I want to say in the late 80s, early 90s, that's, my recollection anyway. The mining companies, if you worked at the mines, you made a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Like, hands down, you made way more money than a construction guy in Reno or Vegas. To where it was worth it to live in the small town. Mm-hmm. With inflation and it hasn't grown with, inflation and all that, to where money is not always the attractor.
No.
But it helps.
It definitely helps. I mean, go to West Texas. There's tons of kids in West Texas because that's because they know they can make $250,000 a year.
There you go.
And so they're willing to just eat shit, live in shit, to make $250,000 a year. It's no, but that's enough money. Like, okay, all right, that's enough money to be in something like that. But yeah, if it's another $30,000 a year, I don't know. I might just rather be in Vegas or Reno or Salt Lake City or whatever it is than working in the mine. I don't know. Like, what was frustrating to me too about Mine Expo that I didn't realize until this Mine Expo. You have to be 18 to attend Mine Expo.
Why? That would be my challenge.
That's a great question.
To the Mine Expo International isn't
that wild?
And maybe the challenge is open it up for free for the last day for people to come in.
I tried. I tried.
Did you?
It was so disappointing. I was so bummed out about it because you go through the show. You were there the whole time. How many young people did you see?
0. I've seen a lot of hungover older guys.
Dude, and it's just like it. I want to be patient, respectful. I know, like I've gotten in a bunch of trouble talking a bunch of shit. Like, okay, I'm trying to talk less shit. But you go to Bauma in Germany. It's spectacular how many different people you'll see there. You've got the old guys, but you've got kindergarten classrooms coming through and kids and families and it's spectacular. It's a true like celebration of the industry. All right, we're going to spend all of this fucking money. I mean, I can only imagine how much Caterpillar's dropping on Mine Expo for that 1 week.
Yeah, it'd be close to 30 mil, 40 mil, maybe north of that.
I would say much more than that with all the entertaining they do and buyout Caesars and all that stuff. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was ultimately like a 9-figure investment. The whole week, everything included. And we do this once every 4 years. This is the only opportunity to get everyday people around the mining industry every 4 years. And we're not going to ask, how do we get more young people involved and engaged? To me, it really upsets me because it's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, we're stepping over $1 to grab a dime.
Exactly. It's like, do we not see the bigger picture here?
Yeah.
Or like, can we not get out of our own way? Like, yes, I get it. Mr. Caterpillar, Mr. Komatsu, whatever. I know you've got to sell your newest electric shovel. Yeah, you're like, I get all that. Still do all of that. But why can't we bring more people in to see it?
Yeah. Well,
what's wrong with that?
Don't you want to be marketing to the younger generation anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is like, those are going to be the guys that are going to sustain your product 10, 15 years from now.
Yes.
Because they got a chance to see it when they were 10 or 11.
Or they're the ones running the damn thing.
Yep, you got it.
Autonomous or not, you still need young people to run the autonomous system. Not autonomous, who's going to drive the damn truck? I don't know. Like, we should probably have a good answer for that. And then even the cost of the show. I got so many messages. Hey, is it really like $250 or whatever it is to even if I go for the day? I'm like, oh, man, like, I don't know. Yeah, it is. I'm so sorry. Honestly, it's probably not worth you spending that much money for a day. Like, that's what I would tell people. Because it's like, yeah, it's not. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
like,
what's the value?
What's the value? Why shouldn't me just? I literally told a guy. He was like, hey, I want to bring my son, who's like 3 years old, 4 years old. I want to bring my son, but it says I reached out. They said nobody under the age 18. I told them, I'm like, dude, buy a ticket and just try to get in. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, okay, the first security guard doesn't let you in, go to the next door. If they don't let you in, go to the next door. And he tried 3 times. He got in the third door, and he was there. He was at the Hitachi booth, and his son was there. And I'm like, and I was talking to him, like, what do you like about the show? And which one's your favorite? And he pointed, I think, to the Hitachi truck.
Heck
He loves the trucks. I'm like, why aren't we doing more of this?
Yeah.
This is what this whole thing should be about.
Agreed.
Whole thing. And so, yeah, that was the one. I'm like, I have no problem telling someone to break the rules, bring your son, because it's like, why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, World Expo, yeah, I think there's, I mean, as a group, we've got to come together and maybe help drive that.
Yeah.
I do know what, it's some of these expos, like Elko does a mine expo every year.
I've heard
at
that
the beginning of June. It is. Yeah. And the whole community comes out. I mean, everybody's looking for swag. They've got their bags, but you have an opportunity to hit the people in the region and show them what you do, represent your company. And it's really more about, for guys like me that, I've worked at Arnold, I've worked in the mines. It's a networking session to where people are proud to bring their families and introduce their families to the other people that they know, right?
Sure.
Along with getting to see new technology, Cat and Komatsu, they put up a ton of equipment that the kids can get on and look around. And so it's a smaller version, but I think in your bigger, like a Vegas show, and Vegas is one of the top places that we need to be recruiting or educating.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, how many of our legislators or our governor, was Lombardo? Was he there? Did he come check it out?
No, he's got more important stuff to do, man. Yeah.
It's more important till it becomes important.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be in our own way because it's going to take us 15 to 17 years to permit.
Well, and that's what's frightening is, and even if we're mining it, we're not processing it in the United States, which is like the whole other conversation that's not happening right now. It's like, awesome, a new copper mine. Let's open up as many copper mines as possible. But we've got 2 smelters.
Yeah, exactly.
and we're bringing a third one back online after it was mothballed. Like, we're not leading the charge when it comes to
forward planning is not there.
yeah. And it's like, okay, we can talk all day about energy transition, this, that. Great. We're going to run the whole world on batteries. Say that is possible. Say we're all in on that. Okay. We need to produce more copper over the next 20 years, or I think it's through 2050. Produce more copper than we have in the entire history of humanity. Okay, great. Cool. Yeah. Say that's possible. Say that's possible. How are we going to do that?
You're just going to dig a hole and build a mountain and wait for it to get processed?
I go to the biggest construction project east of the Mississippi, all manufacturing facilities, all for batteries and automotive. Awesome. Cool. Government money. Feds are handing out billions of dollars here or there. You could say, Dino's battery plant, the government would be like, here's $1 billion, Dino, go have at it. I mean, it's not like that, but it is kind of like that. None of these projects to me make very much sense. And I just sit around, I look at the scale, I appreciate it. I love manufacturing in America, but I can't help but to wonder and ask, where do the raw materials come from? Because they're not coming from America.
Well, how do we recycle those though? I think that's a major question.
Well, that's too, the whole the whole supply chain doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Cool. You're building this amazing $10 billion factory. It's going to manufacture all these batteries. Where does it all come from? What happens to it after? Has anybody asked these questions? Am I the only one sitting around scratching my head about this? And I'm saying it like it's kind of funny, but it's dead serious.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's not worth anything if we don't control the supply chain.
But we're not visible. I mean, visibility's got to be at the top of our priority. I guess maybe I'd ask the question to you, how does Australia do it different than what we do here in the United States?
It's hard to compare because it is apples to oranges in some sense. They're a significant, a double-digit % of their GDP comes from mining. It's not even within a whisker. I don't even know what it is in the United States, maybe 1%. I mean, maybe it's more than that, but it's a significant percentage of the GDP, which then contributes to a significant percentage of their total workforce works in mining or is next to mining or supports mining. So then you have most people in the country familiar with mining because they know somebody that probably works in the mines. It's just more visible in just day-to-day society.
Maybe you could make a movie, man, called Day Without a Miner. I know they did a movie called Day Without a Mexican.
Oh, that's good.
Do Day Without a Miner.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
You go to turn the lights on in the morning, nothing comes on.
Yeah.
All right. You go to turn the faucet on. No water. Go to eat something.
Yeah, it's a joke. That's a joke, but that's real life.
That is funny. That's a good idea.
It's however we got to market it to bring the visibility. I mean, the mining industry isn't an industry that you can utilize too much shock factor, right? It's it's a very professional industry. I mean, we want to put ourselves out there in a great light, but we're not being the squeaky wheel that needs the grease.
And that's one of my other frustrations. It's we're all sitting around talking about this behind closed doors, waiting for someone to finally, because people say it to me, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for speaking up. It's yeah, dude, but I'm some 29-year-old fucking kid. I don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And I know that. Like, yeah, I'm trying to do my best to make a difference, but it's not me. Like, I'm not going to save the damn mining industry. Like, what? We're all waiting for someone else to tell the story. It's like, when are we going to speak up about this?
I agree. Like I said earlier, nothing changes if nothing changes. And it's got to get back to the people.
Yeah.
You've got to get back to the sites, let them manage the sites the way they need, and recruit and, attract talent. Let's get creative. I mean, we work well within boxes, and, I've done some business development consulting for some major OEM companies.
Yeah.
And that's what I've found is they're too stuck in the boxes that I don't know if we can do this, I don't know if we can do that, and it's like, well, how can I give you the idea?
Yeah.
And it's okay that I give you the idea and you're paying me to do that, and then you implement it.
Yeah.
Rather than you guys just getting creative and making it happen.
And that's a whole other thing. If you look at equipment design back in the day versus where it is now, there was some wild shit they built for the mining industry back in the day, because it was just like guys, at like Bucyrus Erie and P&H and these legacy DMAG, like, let's just build something crazy. Like, I don't know what could go wrong. And they would build just the most ridiculous things in the world. But then now everything's about the next quarter, then we've got to make sure the earnings are there. Got to make sure. And so let's play it safe. Let's just make the next shovel based on the last shovel. Worked pretty well. This one worked really well too. Let's not go outside the box.
I think it goes back to your statement though about the younger generation. And Dana White said it well on an interview that I've seen too, that if you're remotely a savage, you're going to run over 90% of the people out there.
Yeah.
But if you can step that up from a corporation level, if you're remotely savage as a corporation and you take those chances, it's going to happen.
World's your oyster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, but what I've found or what I've seen, just from my perspective, with the people that I've known or know in my network, is everybody's afraid to make that decision or make a change because they're they're not willing to die on the vine with the decision or the idea that they've got.
Yeah. And
it's like, man, if you're truly passionate about doing something, you'll die on the sword with it.
But that's the irony, is because they're afraid to go out on the limb. The whole industry, the whole mining industry in America is slowly dying. Totally. And it's a slow death, painful, slow death. And tell me it's not. Like, show me one indicator that says, oh, no, mining in America is actually doing better than ever. It's not. It's not. Like, we're not healthy right now as an industry. So, but I want us to be as healthy as ever. I want America to be the beacon for mining in the world. Like, we need to go see what the Americans are doing when it comes to mining. They're just best in class across the board.
Well, I think what you're going to see smaller projects come online, man.
Yeah. Which we already are.
Private land, a lot more. And I think that's where your workers are going to want to go to as well. I mean, we just podcasted the other day with the CEO for, what was it, Dakota Gold. And it's a company that bought private land up next to the old Homestake mine. They've been doing a lot of drilling, and it's like a half a mile or a mile away from Core Wharf. But that's the CEO's vision is, you know what? The permitting process, if you go on BLM or federal land, is way too long.
Yeah.
What our company looks at is buying private, and we can be up and running in 18 months or 2 years, and we'd actually make money.
That's legit.
And to me, it's like, that's smart.
Yeah.
It's like there's loopholes, but it's like, if you're making it that hard to get the minerals that we need for everyday living, we're going to end up relying on another country.
Well, and we already are.
Yeah.
That ship is sailed a long time ago, decades ago. But to me, again, as a young person, to try to paint the picture is what I find appealing. Like, yes, the stability of working for a major, that's appealing at a certain point in life. But to me, still, as a young person, what's so much more appealing to me is like what Pembroke's doing out in Australia. It's like, we're a startup. Like, yes, we have this multi-billion-dollar operation, but this is it. This is the only project on the books. This is what the company's built upon. This project, we get a blank sheet of paper. So how do we want to do it? How should we do it? How can we go exceed the standards when it comes to environment, when it comes to safety, when it comes to productivity? And let's go do it. Like, let's go have some fun while we do it too. That to me is way cooler to be a part of. And so those smaller projects then are in a lot of ways more exciting because it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. We're not going to have the big 4100s in here, 3 4100s working the same face. Cool. That's fine. I like the big gear, but if we've got smaller shit, but we can at least think outside the box and have fun and ask questions and not have to go submit a 37-page request to go cross this road,
Yeah. Well, essentially, Ben, I mean,
sign me up.
Right now we're working within the standards that the guys in the 70s made or 80s made, right? And that's the standards we're running to right now. On some level, I feel projects like this, they're projects that are they're ready to take the torch from that generation and move it forward.
They're innovating.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which I love. That's what I was explaining the New Range project up in Minnesota. It's like, wow, you guys are really like thinking about this. This is exciting. We're taking, I mean, it's this concentrator, this building, it's 10 acres under roof.
Wow.
Massive building.
Wow.
10 acres under roof. And they're gutting the damn thing to build a whole new plant within the existing building to then mine this new deposit adjacent to this existing deposit while they're reclaiming the old stuff while using the old tailings ponds. The whole thing's awesome. And it's like, I don't know, this is something I'd love to be a part of.
Yeah.
This is so cool to me. That's the kind of stuff that I think is or the cactus mine.
Yeah, in Arizona.
In Arizona coming online. Like, I think something like that is so exciting, so appealing.
Well, that was one of my discussions with the Hitachi group last week. We got a chance to visit with, a couple of their executives, and it's like, number one, you have an opportunity as a company to come in and be a part of the community. 2, you get to be innovative.
Yeah.
3, you just get to make an impact positively, by putting your foot down here. I mean, at Hitachi's a very conservative company.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody like little old Dino to keep pushing the envelope, I will say that we gained a lot of traction last week on opening the idea up for Hitachi to make a splash in the market in Arizona, like pretty big.
The opportunity's there.
Oh, yeah.
I've told a lot of manufacturers that, like, guys, the door's open. It's wide open. It's just a matter of, how willing are you to go out on that limb?
Well, I think they need to go to like Dana White's school, or take a Dana White 101.
Yeah.
It's like,
and it's like, I don't know. It's worked okay for Dana White.
You've even talked to, you podcasted with Jocko and, a lot of the bigger names. I mean, what's your feel around their mentality about what you see in the industry?
The same principles apply everywhere. Like, I don't think the problems that the mining industry have are unique.
Right.
That's what I've gathered. Like, this is all pretty straightforward stuff. And so I think like Jocko, he's big on leadership. If you go apply his very simple laws of combat, leadership principles to the mining industry, you're going to get a better result. It's all human beings at the end of the day. It's like, again, that's my qualm with Mine Expo. And it's not National Mining Association. It's not even Mine Expo. It's like, I know it's an equipment show. I get it. I understand. But it's just like, it almost ignores the reality that is, wait, this whole industry does not revolve around equipment. It doesn't. The equipment, these are just tools. There's just a bunch of fucking hammers in this room. They're really big hammers, but they're hammers. You need someone to swing the damn hammers.
You got it.
Who are the people? Who are they?
They're leaving.
Yes. And then we're gonna sit here and complain about it. Oh, they just don't get it. We have so much to offer. It's like, okay, maybe they don't get it. Maybe we do have so much to offer. Still, like Jocko's first book, Extreme Ownership. Are we taking extreme ownership? Are
No.
we sitting here saying, hey, yeah, we're not getting the workforce we need? That's our problem. That's our problem, because it is.
Yeah. You got
It is.
so many organizations trying to do the same thing at different levels. And I think part of that is everybody thinks that their organization is the best, right?
Yeah.
It's like all your organizations funnel into one industry. And if we can focus, these groups here and have a more strategic approach with it, you're going to be able to put the elephant on the ground.
100%.
But if you've got all these, 15 companies trying to do different things at different times, trying to educate, it just needs to be structured.
Oh, and that's what we're trying to do in a way with our Area Dirt World Summit is, hey, let's get all the forward-thinking individuals in one room and talk about where we're going together and share what the heck we're doing as an industry. And we've had it for 1 year. This will be the second year. I think doing that is really going to start gaining momentum in that way, because yes, it is just a bunch of companies, a bunch of associations, a bunch of this, that. Everybody's trying to do their own thing. Like, why is everybody trying to do their own thing? What are we doing here?
Well, everybody wants to do their own thing because it's they're looking for the same talent, or they're looking to be the better company out of all the companies.
Yeah, or if I'm an association, I view it as like, well, I need my funding. And
nobody wants to share, man.
Yeah.
Like, if I can get the whole pie and nobody gets anything else, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, you still reach that ceiling that your company's only going to be able to sustain so much, and then you're going to have to share, right? To where it should be more about the industry as a whole. And a lot of the conversations that I've had, that's what I get from people like Amanda Hilton.
100%.
Tim Arnold, he works for Bar Engineering, the Vern Goglios. It's got to be about the industry.
Yeah.
And no matter what it is, if you can make a positive impact and you can bring it to a group, it doesn't matter who's getting the pat on the back for it. If we're helping the industry, that's the way we got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I need to pee really badly. How do people find your show?
Oh man, we're on all major platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Stitcher.
Mining Minds,
MINDS.
I didn't know you had 170 plus episodes.
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate, man. We put a lot of time and energy into how we wanted to structure the podcast. I mean, we had a podcast tree, and it's really dissected around different just the mining industry, from equipment sales to actual operations in the mines, mine sites, safety, health, everything included. So we try hitting all individuals from all different departments. And we've got a plan that we're just coming into what we call our layback. Our layback is going to be a little bit more educational. Right now we were with 165, 170 shows. We really focused on the miner and the individual. Now we want to get a little bit more technical and explain, what these individuals do for work. And so, we've got a couple exciting things coming up. But we're on, we got miningmindsllc.com.
Nice. Right
now we're rebuilding the website. We like to be able to get our hats and, some different swag and things like that up there. But
sure.
We offer some different services now. We offer, like I said earlier, business development consulting for companies that want to come in to the Nevada, Arizona, Idaho market.
Okay.
We also do disc training. We do succession planning. So we've got some services, but then we also got a little bit bigger project, or a couple bigger projects out in front of us that we'll talk about after the show. But
nice.
So things are working out, man. We're just a couple of kids that decided to do a podcast in memory of our dad. I don't know if you know what the colors of the logo mean.
You explained it when we were there, but explained it again.
So our dad he got us into the mining industry.
Yeah.
He was originally from Detroit, Gaylord area, Michigan. And those are all Detroit sports teams. He was a huge, or Michigan sports teams. He was a huge Michigan sports fan, so you got Detroit Lions, Detroit Pistons, Michigan Wolverines, and Detroit Tigers.
Nice.
So our logo and our podcast is really a tribute to our dad. Once you come up to the studio, we've started this ever since we started the podcast. We've got a picture of him in the studio just to kind of watch over what we do.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
No, I want to see the studio. I've seen pictures of it, and I was bummed we didn't get up there on my last visit. But yeah, at some point, we'll get there. It's a lot cooler than this studio.
No, I don't know about that.
There's a lot more character.
You got a phenomenal place here, man. I appreciate you having me out.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely.
So, right on. All right. Well, I guess that's podcast.
All right. Thanks again.
Too easy.